Great. So now we're in. You know,
Right.
we're going to talk about bikes that, okay, we know how we are. You know, maybe you're an ex-motocross rider. That's always a great question. I ask someone who's a motocross rider.
Yep.
I know they're going to try to rail it through the woods, right? So we're going to want to make sure that we have enough bike that can truly handle that rugged terrain and just go for it, all right? So with these two bikes here, we have, both of them are in this 135 to 140 mil travel range, and that's how much travel front and rear. But you may be able to pick up on the difference with this head tube angle on this and this bike here. Yeah, that meaning this here. So what happens with a bike is the further out the front wheel sits, well, that's going to drop you down behind the bike, right?
Okay.
And that just allows you to plow through some of the crazy terrain. It also keeps you from if you get stuck behind an obstacle, you don't Superman.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Right? So with that though, there's a penalty to it. So if you want to be super ultra efficient and really be like the cross-country speed racer, well, if this fork is way out front, you're fighting it the whole way. You'll never be able to be efficient. So cross-country bikes and faster racing bikes are always with that wheel back closer to you. And then the more aggressive terrain all the way through to downhill bikes, they're going to push that front wheel out in front of you. And one of the other things that we also need to speak about is bottom bracket drop.
Okay.
Right? Or how close is the bottom bracket to the ground?
I read that all the time, but I don't know, what does that actually mean for a rider?
So what happens with a bike when we take that bottom bracket and we actually lower it?
Okay.
Think of it as like a Harley Davidson, right?
Okay.
Versus a crotch rocket type motorcycle, right? So if you were to take a Harley Davidson, they're going to sit you down low. That's going to create a lot of stability. It's going to give you that smooth track. It's also going to give you that point and shoot kind of feel when you're going through the woods on a mountain bike, right? So you're sitting back a little bit further. So it's a lot of confidence inspiring geometry.
Gotcha.
But again, now we've also pushed those hips back. It's a little tricky to start pedaling. You're doing a lot more quad work, so you're not balancing your muscles as much.
Makes sense.
It's all a matter of what you want to do.
Okay.
So if you want to be efficient and you want to be the guy at the front pushing the pace, then yes, that cross-country bike's going to help you quite a bit. But if you want to point, shoot, maybe catch some air.
Right.
So
a higher bottom bracket is pushing you kind of up, like with the angle
exactly.
of the... Oh,
and ultimately...
That's good. That's good to know, man.
Yeah, and what bike manufacturers do is they tend to move them simultaneously.
Okay.
So a more slack head tube angle usually means you're going to have a more a reduced bottom bracket height. You're going to keep it close to the ground.
So, and I'm glad you said it like that. So he mentioned the word slack. So you'll hear that passed around a lot in terminology when you're talking about a bike. So this bike, what is this? Is the 5010, the Santa Cruz 5010. This bike is more slack.
It is more laid back. More laid back. You're sitting back into the bike more. Yet, this is two bikes that are very similar in the amount of travel. It's just how you sit on it.
Gotcha.
And how you're going to ride through the woods. All right.
So let's talk about, since you brought it up, the woods. Where are you going to find a bike like this? And what are some of the components you might want to add to a bike like this, or these, to make them even better for these different terrains?
Sure. Well, these particular bikes, I would say, fantastic for places like Port Jervis, New York, Sterling Forest, way on to Ringwood. Yeah, totally, Ringwood. These are places with some rough terrain. Again, not everything's rough. Not every inch of trail is a rock, but that's generally the place where you're going to ride these things.
Gotcha.
You ever get on your bike and you're going down a descent and you're like, oh, I'm going to die, and you're kind of tucked behind the seat and stuff.
Have I?
Yeah. So, and this is something that even if you're watching this video and you already have a bike and you're just looking for some information,
nice.
Dropper posts, kind of a big deal. It's been the latest craze of an add-on feature to an existing bike. It's great to have it, and I would say almost every bike over about the $2,700 price point is going to have a dropper post now.
I agree.
Stock.
I agree.
So it's pretty awesome. This is one of those trickle-down technology things that you really benefit from. So you can drop it out of way when it's time to go rip through the woods, and then when it's time to pedal, sit down and pedal and cross-country ride it. There you go.
Nice. Now, the reason why we're bringing up the bikes the way we are, understand, as we said multiple times, you can ride whatever bike you want anywhere. If you want to take this to a lair, if you want to ride this bike on rails to trails, have a blast. But this is not going to be, these bikes would not be the most efficient bike to ride on a rails to trails flat or just going up and down. You would be spending a lot of money on a bike that would never really be used what it was intended for.
Oh, absolutely. And we get that a lot, Gene, where people come in and like, hey, you know, my friend said I got to spend like $900 on a bike. I'm like, well, what are you going to do? Well, my kids are 7 and we're going to go ride the railroad bed path together. All right, you do not need a $900 bike, but always ask that question of, what about the days when the kids aren't around and it's time to go play with the older kids? You know, what are you going to do then? You know, that's an important thing. So it's not just, you know, the one day at Mountain Creek, don't concentrate on a downhill bike. What about the other days? You know, what else are you going to do? And try to fit that mold. Is there the perfect bike for every single type of riding and terrain? No. That's why they make so many. You know? And if you move cross country or something like that, hey, you might need a totally different bike.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, cool. All right, good deal. Good deal.